Hi everyone, this is Justin Harrison, and I would like to thank each of you for taking the opportunity to view this short video clip. Dr. Hill and I are very excited to share with you, as you can see here on the screen, we're going to talk about rose essential oil. And it's my privilege to introduce Dr. David Hill to each of you. He, as you probably know, is our Chief Medical Officer and one of the owners of dōTERRA. And it's our privilege and honor to have a few minutes of his time. And as you've probably heard, there's been a special announcement made about rose oil. And as we've talked, we've discussed that perhaps this may be a new essential oil to many, and feel it important to take just a few minutes and talk about why this particular oil is so unique. And so, Dr. Hill, we're thrilled to have a few minutes of your time and appreciate it very much. And with that, I'll turn the show to you.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that warm introduction. I'm excited to talk about rose essential oil. For a long time now, there's been a lot of discussion about rose, and I know that many of you are very familiar with rose, and you've hoped for quite some time that we would carry rose. Well, I'm excited tonight to talk with you about the very special rose essential oil that we have here at dōTERRA. Now, we know that rose is perhaps no other flower is more recognizable. No other aroma is more evocative than the rose essential oil. And rose is actually kind of interesting as an essential oil. I'm only going to spend just a brief amount of time with you this evening, but I'm going to share with you some of the information of what makes rose essential oil unique and why there is a little bit of history associated with the rose essential oil. First off, most people are unaware that there's great difficulty in extracting and having rose essential oil. When we look at the blossoms themselves, the individual rose petals, it has a very small percentage of essential oil that's actually found within the rose petal. In fact, it takes 60,000 roses, or over 2 million individual rose petals, to produce even just 1 ounce of essential oil. So you can see that there's great difficulty just by sheer volume that's necessary to produce the rose essential oil. Maybe to bring it in a little bit better perspective for you, it takes about 2.5 dozen roses just to produce as little as 1 drop of essential oil. So it's always been held historically to be a very precious essential oil. It's also been held to be a very expensive essential oil because of the value that it offers, but also in the difficulty of receiving that essential oil. Now, the history associated with how you obtain the essential oil is kind of as unique as how many flowers it takes to actually have that as well. It's best to pick the flowers first thing in the morning, new open flowers. Those petals have to be picked individually. In the cool morning, because as the sun heats up, the aroma of the rose itself begins to change and we lose some of the aromatic properties associated with it. You only have about a 20 to a 40-day harvest per year for the essential oils, for the rose as well, that we would distill the essential oil from. Now, there's a couple of things that make this rose oil very unique and very different. Because of some of the difficulty in obtaining rose essential oil, this is a really common oil to have adulterated or to somehow produce synthetically. You know that it's used in a lot of perfume and fragrance and in a lot of health and beauty products. Knowing what you now know, even just in a very brief sense, about the history and what it takes to obtain just even a small amount of the essential oil, you can understand what it is that would make this essential oil that we're talking about tonight so unique. First, it of course fits into the same category that all of our essential oils do. This is a certified pure therapeutic grade essential oil, meaning that it is 100% natural, just as it was found in nature. No synthetic derivatives or alterations in the oil of any kind. That's a difficult thing to accomplish. Now, part of the reason for that, and this is another factor that makes this essential oil so unique and why we're proud to offer this oil, is because of where it's sourced from. And I thought you'd like to know some of the different sources associated with the essential oil. There's really 2 primary circumstances that make the rose essential oil unique and valuable. One is where it is sourced from, and the other specifically is how the essential oil is produced. Now, rose, we know that there's roses that grow all over the world, but in a production sense, we generally see that in France, in Bulgaria, in Turkey, in Iran and in China is represented here on this map. This rose essential oil actually comes from Bulgaria. Just like is the case with all essential oils, different parts, different regions of the world produce different types of outcomes or different types of chemical profiles within the essential oils. And by far, the most beneficial, the most potent rose essential oil comes from Bulgaria. And so our oil is sourced specifically from Bulgaria, not from France or Turkey, Iran, or from China, as is commonly done by many other companies. Now, the other thing that makes this rose oil very unique, aside from the complexity that is associated from sourcing it from one of its indigenous regions of the world, and therefore making it more potent, is how it's distilled and how we receive the essential oil. There is a difference in an absolute essential oil and a steam distilled essential oil. Many people prefer to distill essential oils from rose not through the typical steam extraction that we would normally see with many of the other essential oils. Instead, they prefer to go through a process known as an absolute process. This is difficult because when we create an absolute, we're generally using some type of a solvent or a chemical to extract the essential oil. This is actually more efficient than the steam distillation of the essential oil. For example, you can use much less of the rose petals themselves if you're going to do a solvent extraction, and the yield that you'll actually receive is much, much higher than it is if you do a steam distillation. But you also have a model where that's greatly diluted in terms of its chemistry, and its chemistry and didn't mean to do that, I'm sorry. Its chemistry and its active compounds. It's very different. It's much more difficult to steam distill the rose essential oil, but we want to do that because when we do, we have a complete chemical profile. It's actually a two-step process that occurs when you steam distill the essential oil. You have first initial distillation, and then you have a rose floral water that is redistilled a second time, so we end up with a complete chemical profile associated with this rose essential oil. What that means is not only because of where we source the oil from, but because we take the extra time to do a steam distillation, we have an essential oil that is more pure, that has more potent compounds, and therefore is more effective when we use it as an essential oil. Now, one of the great benefits of that is the chemical profiling that exists with the rose essential oil. Now, I'm not going to really talk about chemistry tonight, but I want you to know that this citronellol is one of the most powerful and potent compounds associated with the rose oil. It's certainly not the only compound, but this rose oil has between 40 and 50% of this compound, making it very effective and, again, very, very potent. And there's some traditional uses that surround that chemistry with rose oil that we're all very familiar with. Now, some of you are being introduced to rose essential oil for the very first time. One of the things that's interesting when you steam distill a rose essential oil versus when you use it or distill it or extract the essential oil in an absolute process with some type of a chemical extraction method, the aroma of the essential oil is very, very different. Essential oils that have gone through an absolute distraction generally have an aroma that's closer to what we typically would think of that a rose should smell like. When we have a steam distillation, we have a more complete chemical profile, and the aroma is very distinctive. It is rose, but it has a little bit of a different aroma associated with it. So you'll notice that when you use this rose essential oil, that the aroma is very smooth and very clean and very pure because of that steam distillation process. Now, traditionally, rose essential oil, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it has a lot of medical, a lot of therapeutic properties associated with it. It's antiphlogistic. That means that it's anti-inflammatory. It's a good antiseptic. It has wonderful antiviral and bactericidal properties associated with it. It's commonly referred to as a good anti-infective essential oil. Most people don't use rose essential oil that way simply because of the value associated with it, and there's other essential oils that fit into that category very nicely. Far and above, rose essential oil is generally used for its health and beauty characteristics. For example, it's an essential oil, and because of some of the compounds in it, it has cicatrisant properties. That means that if we have some type of skin damage, if we have scarring that occurs, or if we need to rebuild or reform tissue, the skin will actually heal faster through the compounds and constituents when we use the essential oil of rose. It's an emollient, and it's a hydrating effect within the skin itself. It's very soothing, and it's very preservative of the skin, so it fights aging, so you have a youthful complexion. For this reason, rose oil is a lot of times found in a lot of health and beauty products. I would suspect that the benefits from rose would be enhanced if within those products they use the type of rose oil that we're discussing today, which is that pure rose as it exists within the petals of the flower itself. Now, another attribute of the rose oil, and I won't spend a lot of time talking about this, and I'll finish on this one point about the rose oil, only because the purposes of this tonight is to just help you understand the value associated with rose. For those of you who don't know anything about it, you have some simple methods and ways that you can consider using it. Most people love the fragrance associated with rose essential oil, and we know of the aromatic properties associated with it, and so it is emotionally soothing to the body. And many people use rose essential oil in much the same way that they would some of the essential oils that we've talked about in the context of our mood matrix, serenity, balance, elevation, citrus bliss. Very calming and soothing to the body because of the compounds that we find within this rose essential oil. A lot of times people compare rose to geranium essential oil mainly because it has some very similar compounds. But rose is different than geranium, even though some of the uses would be shared between them, like, for example, for health and beauty products. Rose adds this additional component of being emotionally stabilizing to the body. Many people use rose oil in conjunction with frankincense, for example. They don't use a lot of rose essential oil because generally when people receive rose, they really value this as an essential oil, and for good reason, because of the history that I've briefly explained, but also because of all of those therapeutic properties and benefits. I am really personally very excited about rose essential oil. I believe that it will offer value to any who choose to receive it. I also like the potential of rose essential oil because this rose, like all of our essential oils, has been sourced and produced in the right way, which means that maybe perhaps for the first time we have a quality of rose essential oil that we've not really seen before, or certainly has not been readily available to those who would choose to use it. So please accept my personal invitation to explore the value of rose essential oil. We'll be talking more about this wonderful oil in the future. There's lots of opportunities to use rose essential oil for its therapeutic benefits. I look forward to exploring those with you and have appreciated my short amount of time with you here. Thank you very much. Well, Justin, I'll turn it back to you because I know you have just a couple of things that you'd like to share quickly. And I normally don't talk about these things, but I'm actually very excited about this because I think this is an amazing opportunity. And so I'm going to turn this back to you, Justin.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hill, and thank you for sharing. And I've never seen anything happen like this before, and I know that the company, you and Emily and others, have worked very diligently to acquire this limited supply of rose oil and to make it available for free, as you see there on the screen. It's just a tremendous opportunity. It's so highly prized and a value of over $300.
Justin, I think sometimes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to, just for a moment, and then I'll be quiet, but you know, one of the things I love about what we do is that we're in this constant exploration model for essential oils, and we're, as you know, that's a very active process for us. And I love Emily Wright because she is so heavily involved in that process, and she gets very excited about the oils. And when we first started looking at rose essential oil, we knew that we had something special. And it's been fun to watch her and others get excited. It's been fun to watch her get excited about what you're talking about now, which is offering this for free. some people might think, what are they doing? I hope that everybody listening does recognize the full value associated with this, but this is something that collectively, Justin, it would be inappropriate for me not to speak now on behalf of all of the other owners of dōTERRA, and that is that we are truly grateful and thankful, and this is as much an offering of our appreciation as everything else that we all work so hard and continually do, and I mean that collectively, everyone who's in dōTERRA. And so we say thank you, and this is something that we're very pleased to offer, and we've not lost our mind, and we're not doing something silly or crazy. We're just really genuinely grateful, and we could not think of a better way to express our appreciation this time of the year.
Well, thank you. Those are very kind words, and the sentiment is echoed throughout the field. Thank you, Dr. Hill, and the other owners and executives as well, because it is such a phenomenal, as a word, the only word I can think of is phenomenal opportunity to be able to get such an exquisite, and I know this isn't going to be available for sale, at least not anytime soon. And
it isn't. That's very true, Justin. This is a limited time offer that we have, and part of that is because of the limitation in this high quality oil that we've been able to procure. So.
Well, I think this is great. So the only way we can get this is through this promotion. So it's wonderful. So thank you so much, and thanks for your time tonight. I know you're very busy and you're there with your son, and wish you well, and say good night to everyone else, and hope that as many as possible will participate in this. And instead of going for the gold, go for the rose. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Justin. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Dr. Hill. Bye-bye.